Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanishalaakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudirayet. In this session, we'll be discussing from the 41st verse of the 13th chapter of the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Narada Uvacha Ma Kanchana Shucho Rajan Yadishvara Vasham Jagat Loka Sapala Yasyeme Vahanti Balim Ishituhu Sa Samyunakti Bhutani Sa Eva Viyunakti Cha. The meaning of this verse is, Sri Narada said, O pious king, do not lament for anyone, for everyone is under the control of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, all living beings and their leaders carry on worship to be well protected. It is He only who brings them together and disperses them. So, Srila Prabhupada explains this very important point in the purport elaborately. What Narad Muni is telling as a reply to Yudhishthira. Yudhishthira is concerned, where are my uncles and aunt gone? So Narada, before directly telling where have they gone, he's first explaining the general principle, which all of us have to understand. Every living being, either in this material world or in the spiritual world, is under the control of the Supreme Lord, the Personality of Godhead. Now, why is Krishna called the Supreme Lord? Because Lord means controller, and Supreme means is the ultimate controller of everyone. So He is completely controlling everyone in the material world and in the spiritual world. Universally, everywhere He is controlling. And Prabhupada further clarifies this, beginning from Brahmaji, the leader of this universe, down to the insignificant ant, all are abiding by the order of the Supreme Lord. And Brahma is the first created being in this universe. There are millions of universes. There are millions of planets in each universe. And in each planet, there are millions of living entities. All of them, beginning from Brahma, the topmost in this living being in this universe, down to the most insignificant creature, everyone is abiding by the order of the Supreme Lord. The Supreme Lord's control is everywhere. And when it is said everyone is abiding by the order, not everyone is abiding by the order of the Lord voluntarily. It is only the devotees and the pious people, the followers of the Vedic injunctions or the scriptural directions given by God, only they are actually voluntarily following the order of the Supreme Lord. The others, demons, atheists, and agnostics, materialists, rebellious souls, all of them are forced to obey the order of the Supreme Lord. Thus, the constitutional position of the living being is subordination under the control of the Lord. Everyone is subordinate to the Lord. The Lord is the only supreme personality, the supreme master. Everyone is under His control. Ekala Ishvara Krishna ar sababhritya. This is explained in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Krishna is the only Ishvara, only controller, ultimately. And everyone else is under His control. Constitutional position means the way we are made, the way we are constituted, the way we are eternally, is that we are subordinate. And the way Krishna is, what is Krishna's constitutional position? It is to always control, always be the master, the Lord, the supreme. And we are always subordinate. Eternally we are subordinate to the Supreme Lord Krishna. The foolish living being, especially man, artificially rebels against the law of the Supreme and thus becomes chastised as an asura or lawbreaker. When laws are operating and there's an enforcing authority, anybody who breaks the law is immediately punished by the law enforcing authority. Just like there is traffic police patrolling and anybody violates the traffic laws, immediately the traffic police will chastise, will actually stop the lawbreaker and correct the lawbreaker. So similarly, even in the whole creation, there is the law of the Supreme that is operating, and anybody who rebels against the law is chastised, is punished by the Supreme Lord. Now Srila Prabhupada explains how does it work actually. In our practical experience, we don't see any God coming and chastising us. If at all we are chastised, it's by the lawmakers in our country or in our institutions. We don't see any God. Where is God? That's what an atheist or a law breaker may question in this way. So Prabhupada says a living being is placed in a particular position by the order of the Supreme Lord and is again shifted from that place by the order of the Supreme Lord or his authorized agents. We are all placed in some particular position and removed from that position. By whom? By the order of Krishna or his authorized agents. So Prabhupada lists some names by which we can get an idea what is the extent of the control of the Supreme Lord. Brahma, Shiva. Brahma and Shiva, the greatest of demigods in the entire creation. Greatest of demigods. Indra, Chandra, they are also very powerful demigods but subordinate to Brahma and Shiva, even they. Maharaj Yudhishthira, even Maharaj Yudhishthira, he is under the control of the Lord. Or in modern history, Napoleon, Akbar, Alexander, Gandhi, Subhash and Nehru, all are servants of the Lord. All these names mentioned are powerful personalities in the history. But everyone is servant of Krishna. Ekala Ishvara Krishna or Sabhabhritya. And they are placed in and removed from their respective positions by the supreme will of the Lord. Nobody is exception to this supreme control of the Supreme Lord. They rose to some very powerful position in their own time, but they were placed in that powerful position by the Supreme Lord, and they were also removed. They cannot remain forever. Nobody can remain forever in their position. They were also removed by the will of the Lord. None of them is independent. Nobody is independent. Only Krishna is supremely independent. This is described in the Bhagavatam in the beginning, in the first canto, first chapter, first verse. Swarat janmadhyasya anvayat itaratas chartheshu abhijna swarat. Swarat means Krishna is supremely, completely independent. Even though such men or leaders rebel so as not to recognize the supremacy of the Lord, they are put under still more rigorous laws of the material world by different miseries. Why do miseries come? They are enforcement of the authority of the Supreme Lord on lawbreakers, on rebellious souls. It is only the rebellious souls who suffer. Nobody else who is fully obedient will have to suffer in this material world. Only the foolish man therefore says that there is no God. Foolish people, they say, where is God? Who is God? There is no God. But the foolish man doesn't realize that who is imposing miseries upon him whenever he suffers. Right from the time he is placed in the womb of a particular mother, inside the womb he has suffered so much. And he forgets that. Everyone who enters the womb of a particular mother, what suffering they undergo, they forget after they come out of the womb, because they get some relief and they say, better don't remember that traumatic experience, better forget it. And then through their growing up, childhood, as a child, so many different types of sufferings. Even the rich man's child, the most cared for child also has to suffer. Supposing there is an ant biting a child in the diaper, then how does the child express itself to its mother or nurse or caretaker? We had the best of people taking care. But how does the child express? The child simply is helpless in expressing. It can only cry. Now when the child cries, the mother or the caretaker or the nurse cannot understand why the child is crying. Of course, the mother or caretaker can make out the child is having some discomfort. Okay, they'll try to comfort the child. Maybe they'll think it's hungry, so they'll try to feed it. So feeding that will not stop the crying because the ant is biting in the diaper. And then they will try to play with the child, try to give the child some air. Maybe it's feeling suffocation, or maybe it is feeling too cold. Whatever. Different ways they speculate and try to comfort the child. But how will they understand the child is crying specifically because an ant is biting in the diaper? How will they figure that out? They cannot. So this is a misery that the child has to suffer because of its own past misdeeds. Own past misdeeds. And it's not very easy for the child to get relief from that. So only till that quota of suffering is given to that living entity in that situation, in that circumstance, till then it has to suffer. It has to cry and cry and cry and cry. And then by the will of the Lord, somehow they will figure out, let's say it passes urine. Then to change the diaper, when they remove the diaper, they'll see, there was they may or may not notice. Anyway, with the diaper being removed and disposed, the ant is also gone, the child gets relief. Or they notice the ant and then they understand the cause and then they remove that ant. So, like that, it is even those who are cared for by different material methods, there is no guarantee of freedom from miseries, even those who are cared for. So therefore, this world, everybody is controlled by the Lord. Everybody is placed in a particular position and removed from that position by the will of the Lord, by His superior arrangement. And those are called the laws of God. And everybody is forced to abide by the laws. So intelligent people simply understand that we have to surrender to Krishna, the Supreme Lord, and we have to abide by His laws, orders, and pray to Him to get out of this entanglement of material existence. Only He can help us cross over this ocean of material existence. Daivi hesha gunamayi mama maya duratyaya mameva ye prapadyante maya metam tarantite. In simple one verse, in a simple way, Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, you cannot overcome the stringent laws of this material nature, which are the laws of Krishna only, simply by your own methods and arrangements and intelligence and all kinds of remedies. You cannot. But if you surrender to Krishna, Krishna will easily help you to cross over. And that is what will be explained by Narada in the next verse. I'll stop here. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.